booktube, so it is now halfway through 2021, believe it or not, and so I thought I would do the mid-year book freakout tag. I will leave the questions in the description below, and let's get into the questions. The first one is best book you've read so far in 2021, and I was able to pick one, just one, and this is The Peabody Sisters: Three Women Who Ignited American Romanticism by Megan Marshall, and this really focuses on the Transcendentalism movement. It's following three sisters. The first one, Elizabeth, she is just a force to be reckoned with. She is all for like women's rights, and she is a really into education. She amazingly educates herself, like reading the Bible like backwards and forwards, and transcribing it into a different language. And this is when she's really young, and so she starts her own school, and she eventually founds what we now have as kindergarten. And then the middle sister really helped her out as well with that. And then the youngest sister, she was very artistic and or artsy, and she actually married Nathaniel Hawthorne. And so Hawthorne was Elizabeth, the older sister's friend at first, and then he has a romantic relationship with the youngest sister. And so his biography is one of his biographies are on my radar to read in the coming 6 months, because I've read a lot of his books, and I really enjoy his work, and I'm like fascinated by his kind of reclusive attitude. And so yeah, we'll see what I think when I get to that one. Let's see, number 2 is best sequel you've read so far in 2021, and this is Emily of Deep Valley by Maud Hart Lovelace. And this is like a series that's beside, I think it's called the Deep Valley series, and it's really like an extension of the Betsy Tacy series set in Deep Valley. And this is about Emily, who she puts aside her own wishes to help her elderly and ailing grandfather. And she at first is really upset about this because all of her friends are going to college, and she herself really wants to get an education. But she finds ways to make do with what she's given, and creates her own education through life experiences, and makes new friends. And so yeah, this was just a fantastic book. Then I have, number 3 is new release you haven't read yet but want to, and this is Fox and I, an Uncommon Friendship by Catherine Raven. And this book is what I'm actually going to be reading this weekend, and this is about a woman who has just got her PhD in biology, and she's living alone, I think it's like the middle of nowhere, and she befriends a fox, and because she's very lonely, and so she starts talking to the fox and reading The Little Prince to him. And so yeah, I'm greatly looking forward to this one. And again, love this cover. And then number 4 is most anticipated release for the second half of the year. And I don't have many books that I like are on my radar. I just see them as other people are talking about them, not in advance, as they're coming out like that week or the month or whatever. But of the few that I do have checked, saved on my Goodreads, this one looks like one of the more promising books, and this is Books Promiscuously Read: Reading as a Way of Life by Heather Cass White. And this is like a book about books, and why we love reading, and maybe promiscuously means like reading multiple books. I don't know, but yeah, this looks really good. And then number 5 is Biggest Disappointment, and that would be a comic book, and this is Batman: The Dark Knight Returns by Frank Miller. And I read this when Steve Donahue and was it Matthew at Mayberry Book Club? Was he the one that was doing? I think it was them two that were doing a read along of this, and I had never read it. I've seen this cover around, and I've heard about it, but I've read a few other Batman comics. He's not my favorite comic book character, but I have read a few in the past, and so I was like, okay, I'm ready to dive into this, that gives me the extra nudge to read it. And I didn't like it at all. I didn't like his character of just, I didn't like the vibe. Like, it was all the dark tones, and it was just depressing. And he's coming back to help the city after being gone a while. And yeah, I don't know. That little description there I liked, but yeah, this just was not for me. Let's see. Number 6 is Biggest Surprise, and that would be Janet Hamm Needs a Date for the Dance by Eve Bunting. I found this at a little free library, and I was drawn in by the cover, like the 80s colors and picture there. And I've heard of Eve Bunting. I have one or two of her other books on my TBR to get to eventually. And so yeah, I gave this one a try, and I was just so surprised by how much I liked it, because it's a simple story. It's about a teenager who needs a date for the dance. All of her friends have one, and she's like the single girl of the group, and so she lies and says she has a date for the dance, and so now she has to scramble and try and find one. And so yeah, this was just great. What I liked about this was just the teenage human emotions that, you know, like I was like kind of like reliving here, and just I think Eve Bunting is just a fantastic writer, and so I'm really looking forward to reading more from her and books that are actually on TBR by her. Let's see. Then number 7 is favorite new author debut or new to you, and that would be Ivan Dwog. I really need to know how to pronounce his name, since I'm reading a bunch of books by him since I found him. And the first book I read was The Whistling Season, and I've also read English Creek. And he does really good, I think all of his books are set in like Montana or, you know, the West. And at least the 2 I've read so far are about boys who are growing up, and I don't know, kind of like bigger than the town that they're living in, because both of them are really good at learning, and so they have like high hopes of making a really successful career, even though they're coming from really small town roots. But it's also about their love of farming, or, you know, the love of where they're living, and just that whole small town vibe. And like the family structure, relationships. I just loved everything about the books I've read so far by him. And then newest fictional crush, I'm just gonna leave that one there because I don't have one. I don't think I've ever had one, to be honest. Let's see, number 9 is newest favorite character, and that would be Emily from Emily of Deep Valley. I'm using the second this book again for this question because yeah, I love her. I can greatly identify with just her personality. And then number 10 is a book that made you cry, and I don't cry in books, but this is a book that really, I don't know, consoled me in a way when my dog Tucker died back in January. And this is A Wolf Called Romeo by Nick Jans, and this is about a wolf that pops up in Juneau and is like walking around the parks, and it, like, at first it was a wolf, like, oh my gosh, because there's dogs and humans walking at this park too, but the wolf like befriends the dogs and doesn't bother them and doesn't bother the people. And so yeah, this was just great. And so I don't know if you can make out, but there's a lab here, because this is Nick Jans' own dog who plays with the wolf, and Nick Jans makes the point after, like, in the initial meeting, of keeping, you know, a distance from them, like from him, and like so they doesn't like habituate him to being around people, because you do want to keep that distance. And so yeah, this was just a fantastic read, and I was sad while reading it because I was just, you know, it just brings out like the highlights of what's special and just great about having a dog. And then let's see, number 11 is book that made you happy, and that would be Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen, and this is the manga classic that I read last week. Let me show you some artwork here. But yeah, this just had lots of humor in it. It had like the Japanese humor. If I can find an example here. Like, for example, you have the mom, and like the art style here of her, like, being so happy that that Jane will have to stay the night at Mr. Bingley's because she gets sick. And yeah, there's just tons of like little funny bits, and yeah, I love the art style. So yeah, I was happily not surprised, but I was very grateful, very, very happy that I bought the book. I'll say that. Because I didn't know there was manga classics of these. And then number 12 is most beautiful book that you've bought so far this year. And I couldn't really pick one. And there's a couple that I really like, but I'll go with this one. This is Wild in the City, A Guide to Portland's Natural Areas by Michael C. Hook and M.J. Cody. And I like this book. It's all about Portland, like natural areas or scenic areas. And so yeah, with the beaver here in the city, and then you have some of the river and some of the boats and the bird. Yeah, I really like the wraparound cover. And then number 13 is what books do you need to read by the end of the year, and kind of just say all of them. I initially, I don't know. So last year I read over 400 books, like 450, 460 books, or maybe more. I can't remember exactly. But that was like unheard of for me. Normally I read around, like each year I've read more and more. So the last couple of years outside of 2020, I was reading 300 plus. And so each year I'm like, I'm going to read at least one more book than the year before, year prior. But 2020 was, like, for all of us, like an exceptional year. And for me as well, reading wise, because I just really like took solace with reading, and I didn't go out at all, and so all my free time was spent reading. And so that's how I got that huge number. And so this year I put my goal of like one more book than that, but I don't think I'm going to hit that. Like right now I'm at like, I don't know, like 170-ish. And so that again like brings me to like the 350-ish mark by the end of the year. So, but I'm happy with that. Like that is completely fine, because I don't know if I want to have like weird years like 2020 that gives me that time of reading so much, because that was just not fun. But I'm glad to have had that like therapy in a way to keep me sane. But anyway, yeah, that's my answers for the mid-year book Freakout tag. I'm not going to tag anyone because this is like it's been going around, making its rounds, and I'm getting to it a little bit later. But I wanted to at least finish June before I gave my answers. But yeah, let me know if you read any of these books, and I will talk to you soon. Thanks, BookTube.